Welcome to Connected, where no topic is off topic. I am your host, Kimberly Dam. Today, I'd like to talk about my spiritual journey. I know. Unfortunately, you guys, it really is, it's interesting. I don't know as though I would say exciting. And I always feel weird about speaking about my spiritual journey because I really kind of don't feel like that there's anything terribly unique. But I feel like it's important to share our experiences. So grab a cup of tea. And I would just suggest, or maybe do some laundry while listening to this. It's up to you. If you wanna relax, or if you wanna, do something that kind of keeps you busy while you listen to this. I'm just saying you might want to make yourself a little comfortable, or at least useful, because we're gonna be diving in and there's gonna be a lot covered. So, all right, so here we go. Are we ready? So, just like anybody else, I began my spiritual journey not voluntarily. It was something that I had to do. I found myself at a place in my life in which it just wasn't what I thought it was. And so, whenever we discover that our life isn't what we thought it was, we of course start seeking out what it actually is. I was going through some things within my marriage that I wanted to really, I kind of really wanted to dig in and explore what was really going on. And when I say dig in, I mean, I really had to start evaluating relationships and how I viewed them and how they had been constructed in my life before meeting my husband at the time. So essentially, I was called to do a bunch of shadow work. And when all of this came up, of course, I started going to therapy once every 2 weeks. I really attribute a lot of my growth, my personal growth, and my relationship growth to therapy. I think it's definitely important that we have somebody that is objective to talk to, and also somebody just to kind of see things from a different perspective that can help us put things in perspective. So I definitely always encourage that. I don't ever want to undermine that. In the future, in a future episode, I'll get into my personal thoughts about therapy. But for right now, I just feel like it's important for me to state that I was going to see a therapist, often during my spiritual journey, because I think that it really aided in the process. So anyway, yeah, I was kind of just, I needed something. I needed something higher than myself. I really needed to look within myself, but I also needed something outside of myself that I could turn to. I was raised Christian. However, it was not, my mom was really flexible about it. It wasn't like heavily placed on me. And I grew up in central New York area. So I'm just saying that in contrast to other parts of the country where, religion has played a different role. It was just a little bit more loose. My mom raised us to have good values, to learn how to have love and compassion for other people. But she was not like heavy about it, if that makes sense. She didn't really push it upon us. She, it was kind of like we went to church until we were 14, and then after that, we kind of had a choice as to what we wanted to do. So anyway, with that said, as I began embarking upon reaching for something outside of myself, I decided to kind of, it's like I really had never paid attention I had paid attention to the sermons in church, but I really hadn't given the Bible a lot of weight. And I decided that if I was going to go on this journey, that I should probably start there. I wanted to see what resonated with me. I wanted to see if Christianity really resonated with me. I wanted to see what was in it, and if I could actually take anything from it and move forward. So I started with reading the Bible. I did like one of those Bible reading plans. Um, and I think it was like a year. So I did that. In conjunction with that, I also kind of like, I would show up at the library and I would be like, okay, how many self-help books do you have? And which ones are available? Because because I really wanted to dive in, and I was in a place in my life where I wanted some input. I needed that input. And so I read a lot of spiritual works. I think I started with A New Earth by Eckart Tolle. I read An Untethered Soul. I read Ishmael. There's so many, you guys, honest to God, like the Celestine prophecy. It's endless. So that was the road that I kind of went on. And coincidentally, are you ready for this? I know it's gonna shock you. I also started doing yoga. I know, you guys. I know. It's so cliche, but that opened me up also in different ways. It honestly just brought me more into my body and just seeing what was going on there. Personally, I feel that in terms of what really had the largest effect on my journey, it was really the meditation practice that I chose to embark upon. I remembered at that time, I think Headspace had just hit the App Store, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to give this a whirl. So I, put Headspace on my phone, and I started at like 3 minutes. And then I think with Headspace, if you don't want to pay for it, I think it gets you up to like 10 minutes. And so after that, I basically just kept climbing, and eventually I grew to having a meditation practice where I meditated for about 7 minutes in the morning, and then I meditated for about 20 minutes in the evening. And during that time, I remembered coming upon certain things. One of them was, I loved at the end of my meditation closing it with something that really brought me back to a place of purpose, a place of service, a place of surrender. And that saying was, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say, and to whom? And it really just helped center and ground me every single time. It helps me remember who I was. It helps me remember that there is a vision that is so much larger than what I can possibly conceive or conceptualize in my head, that it just reminded me that there's so much more like outside of myself. There's so much more that I can't see. There's so much more that, if you really think about it, like, we can't see into the future at all. At all. We can sit here and we can think that we know what we're here to do. We can think we can think we know what's gonna happen, but we really don't. And so that saying was really just a beautiful reminder. And I remember there was one day in particular. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Shailene Woodley. I'm a big fan of hers because she's just, to me, like, amazing. The way that in her activism, in her role that she plays within her celebrityism, so to speak. It was funny because I remembered one day she had posted Nahko and Medicine for the People's Aloha Akua. And this was when I was still on Twitter. My God, this must have been like 2011. And she had posted it. And I remembered I had come out of meditation, and I had slotted that after, my meditation, I was going to listen to this song. And so I popped in my earbuds and I laid down on my floor in my office. And I swear to God, this song just turned me inside out. this song, I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it is so invoking. It actually, like the vision that I'm getting in my head right now is like the zombies crawling out of their graves in Thriller. And that's so not the vibe that I want to give you, but it's like that grounded earthiness, longing. Like there's a part in it where Nahko is just like it's whatever is being engineered in terms of the audio. It sounds like that he is like it's like he's yelling and it's echoing. And so I just remember like feeling like it was just like reverberating within my soul, and it really just woke me the fuck up. And I realized that I really needed to start putting my life under a microscope. I really needed to start evaluating what was important to me, what my values really were, what type of role I wanted to, what type of person I wanted to be, what I wanted to contribute to this world, what I wanted to do with my time here. And of course, I started going through everything. I started going through my habits. I started going through what it was that I was consuming, on a cultural level as well as on a personal level. I started just absorbing any type of knowledge that I could about certain things that had always, that other people had challenged. I read about veganism. I read about paganism. I read about um, just like history in general, how things are tainted, how, Jesus wasn't born on Christmas Day. Like, just like all these, I know it's like such a stupid idea, but it's like all these things that were kind of like fed and we just accept. And I just started challenging everything that I could find. And it it totally changed everything. I mean, I remember going through my closet, and I was very much into capsule wardrobes at the time. I was like, okay, you know what? Like, I'm going to do this. I read S.1, which I don't know if you're familiar but with that book. It's by Jen Hatmaker, but it's just all of these things came to the surface, and I was just going through with a fine-tooth comb, and I was like, this isn't working for me. This isn't serving me. This is not the type of person that I want to be. This is not contributing to my health, my worthiness, to my sense of self, to spirit, to basically everything that is. And so I cut out a lot of like bad eating habits that I had, even though I never really considered myself an unhealthy eater. There was just everything. Everything was just placed under a microscope. And I feel that that resonates with a lot of people, because I feel like nobody can start a spiritual journey without doing a serious overhaul of like their entire life and just deciding, okay, this has to go. So yeah, I pretty much stayed on that path. With my meditation practice, I started experiencing certain um, out of body type experiences where I would be sitting in meditation and I would be kind of like looking down on myself. I would also be extremely aware of myself in communication, to the point where I could pinpoint where I chose, like where I could pinpoint where, like what triggers were coming up for me and whether or not I wanted to disengage. I I learned to stay very much in the present moment, especially in um, especially in like dealing or communicating or being around other people. I was able to really stay in the present moment. Um, I was taught surrender, although I really feel like I honestly did not learn true surrender until this past year, and I'll get into that. So with my meditation practice, just there came a lot out of that. I learned a lot of lessons from that, but also just in manifestation alone, I kind of started playing with the energy of the universe. I tried, I played with seeing what it was that I could attract into my environment. Um, and that was incredible. That was really incredible. basically shifting from this place of thinking that certain things were impossible to essentially learning that nothing is impossible. I manifested a lot of opportunity that came my way. And that was really kind of, it's weird when that happens. It's weird when you're able to do that because you kind of feel like, as it's happening, you're kind of like, fuck, is anybody else seeing this? Like, especially when it's so effortless. That's really creepy. Um, that's kind of essentially what happened with this podcast, but it's weird because I didn't set out to manifest it, so it's a little bit different. But when you set out to manifest something deliberately, like, a move or an opportunity that is like a big opportunity, and it comes to you, and you're literally like sitting there. It's like that emoji where like the eyes are just looking over to the one side. It's kind of like, oh fuck, like don't move, they might find out that you're a fake. It's kind of like you just fucking performed magic, and you're just like, fuck, I don't know as though I want anybody to see this, because if I move or if I take this opportunity, people might figure me out. And then, not that you're a fake, but that it's almost like you've been given the key to the castle, but yet you don't want to tell everybody you've been given the key to the castle because you could end up starting a riot. And also because you're not entirely sure if you have the key to the castle. You're kind of like, I think I had the key to the castle, but I'm not really sure, but please don't hurt me, type of thing. So yeah, manifestation, right? Whole nother topic for another day, but such an amazing, amazing thing. So yeah, that was my spiritual journey probably up until like 2015. After that, I actually moved with my spouse to North Carolina, and I continued, I was still very committed in learning, and I was committed to my spirituality, and I knew what resonated with me, and I was continuing, in, I was still doing yoga and everything, but during the transition, my meditation practice kind of came to an end. It just kind of temporarily stopped, really. There was just a lot going on. You move and you just transition, and just, buying a house and whatever, building a, I basically owned a business when I was in Central New York. And then, so I had to start over here. But yeah, so I kind of lost my meditation practice. And then it really wasn't until 2 years later. It's always really interesting to me because I feel like throughout your spiritual journey, you have moments of increased activity and then quiet, solitude, peace, like almost like a break. Like you almost go on these spiritual binges, and then you have like 2 to 3 years where you're just like, okay, I can't do anything. And then you go back in. It really is just a roller coaster, but not like in a bad sense, just like inundated, 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 and then quiet. And then inundated, 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 and then quiet. So that is what happened basically between 2015 and 2017. In 2017, in June 2017, I was invited back in, and it was with the passing of my uncle. He, honestly, I did not have a very close relationship when he was incarnated here. He was my father's brother, and I don't have a very close relationship with my father, so I rarely ever saw him. However, when I did see him, it was mostly when I was young, and I remember him being he was just kind of like a really funny guy, but he also had a groundedness about him. He always made sure that like I was good, that I was okay, that I wasn't feeling like out of place, because my dad had all brothers, so, and they had their sons, and so I was like the only girl amongst all these men. And he was just like, he always just made sure that I was okay. It was almost, I hate to say this because I love my father, but Jeff was more fatherly than my father was. He just had those qualities about him. So anyway, um, he passed in June, and I remember the day after he died, I went for a walk on the beach, and I get over the dunes, and it's very calm. It's a beautiful morning. It's June in North Carolina. And I get over the dunes, and I just notice that there is a rain cloud, but I'm like, I'll be here 20, 30 minutes tops. There's no way that that's going to move in. And there's plenty of other people on the beach. So, I'm thinking I'm good and I'm golden. So I get about a quarter of a mile, and I shit you not, like a bat out of hell, it starts pouring, but not rain, like hail. It is windy, like huge gusts of wind are coming through, and it just lets loose. And it is raining so hard, or I should say hailing so hard, because I straight up know that it was hail. It is hailing so hard that it is hurting my skin. Now, mind you, I'm in shorts and a tank top because it's June in North Carolina, and it's like prickling my skin. And I go and I start running. I turn around to start running back towards the parking lot. And the wind, I shit you not, you guys, is blowing so hard that the water is just streaming down my face, and I can't see where I'm going. Not to mention that the wind is blowing so hard that it's like you're running, but you don't feel like you're actually getting anywhere. So I turn around and I start running backwards because I'm like, well, at least if I'm going to make headway, I need to be able to see. So, but I'm not, but I'm like, at least my eyes are open. So anyway, I just give up. I give up because I don't even feel like I'm getting anywhere. I give up, and I just start walking, and I just place my hands over my eyes, and I'm just walking. And the entire time, now mind you, I'm getting drenched. And when I mean drenched, like I was able to wring out my shirt, everything. So I'm walking back, and it's the weirdest thing when like you get spiritual insight in a situation like that, because you're just like, you're so trapped in kind of being a human being on this earth, experiencing a very physical existence. It's like I'm literally sensing the rain hitting my skin and it hurting, and the wind, and like me not being able to see. It was almost like my senses were all heightened. And then I get this like this insight, and I'm like, okay, good time for an insight. Like, I get this is what came to me, that you cannot experience pain without pleasure, or pleasure without pain, because to know one, you need the other. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, really? Now you pick now to bring this to me? And I'm like, okay, duality, sure thing, whatever. I don't really think anything of it. I continue to walk back to the beach access, and I get up the crest of the dune, and the rain dead stops, and I look up, and the sun is coming out behind that cloud with like those godlike rays. You know which ones I'm talking about. And I'm just like, oh, you're funny. And deep down, I knew, I'm like, this was meant for me. And whether you want to say that it was Jeff being his prankster self, because my uncle was very much like that, or whether you want to say that it was God, and for some reason, or the universe, or the cosmos, whoever, and I needed to kind of be stripped down of my senses to have that kind of epiphany for whatever reason, then okay. But from that time forward, I basically took it as that was my uncle, because he was a jokester. Now I know that in some people's eyes, that's not him, and that's okay. So, it was kind of weird because I felt more connected through that experience. And then it was really interesting. Following that experience, I started to see numbers, a lot of ones specifically. And what's interesting is when I had kind of encountered my first dive into my spiritual journey back when I had lived in Central New York, I never really experienced synchronistic numbers, not a lot of them, not like I have this time a lot around. And so I started seeing these numbers and I just kept getting like bombarded with them. And eventually I was like, huh, maybe there's something to this. Maybe I need to recommit myself to my meditation practice. And so I decided, I was like, I felt like that the universe, God, Jeff, whatever, there was a message that needed to be conveyed. And so I was like, okay, I'm like, let's do this. I'm going to sit down in easy pose and let's hash this shit out. What do I need to know? And holy fuck. That was the fall of 2017. In February 2018, I decided that I needed to make some major changes in my life, one of which was leaving a relationship that I was in for 22 years. I separated from my husband, and I was that I will definitely get into that decision in the future, but that was not it was weird. It was a very weird place to be, you guys. Basically what had happened is somebody had asked me to make a YouTube video about self-love. And so I make this self-love video and I'm watching the playback and I'm listening to myself and I realize that I'm not living, I wasn't, the choices that I was making at the time were not in my best interest. And so I knew that I had to grow in certain ways, and I knew that I couldn't do it within the context of a relationship. So I decided to separate from my husband. And the amazing thing was that I was completely supported by the universe. I had friends beside me and family members who were extremely supportive. My ex, who I am now divorced from, it was hard for him, but even he was supportive. And it was just like amazing. I kind of felt like when I made the decision, everything, even though it was difficult, I felt it was also somewhat easy, if that makes sense. And everything that has unfolded since then, I know has been in my highest good. Um, in the past, ever since that time, I have really had to settle into a place of patience and surrender. Patience does not come easy for me. It is honestly, I would say it's like probably one of the most negative traits that I have. It's like the highest. I can get very impatient, especially with myself. And this process has demanded more of me than obviously of anybody else. I'm usually very, very patient with others, but I am very impatient when it comes to myself and my progress and like kind of like me getting shit done. Um, and the surrender aspect, I mean, I really still don't know where my life is going. I feel like there was a lot of surrender that was required in order for me to receive, to even like be observant enough to receive the call to do this podcast. So it's been it's been quite an experience. It's been extremely eye-opening. I I'm just going to tell you, and I mean, the past 2 years have been so filled with synchronicity that actually, when I started experiencing synchronicity, and I'm talking in addition to numbers, I actually, no joke, kept a log because it was happening so quickly, so fully, and so like monumentally that I thought, oh my God, this cannot be. Like this is crazy. I I needed to write it down because I almost felt like it was like something that I couldn't believe unless it was down, like written on paper in front of me. And so I had to keep a log. And obviously, I kind of gave up that log. I kind of realized, oh, okay, this is just how my life is going to go from here on out. It has not stopped, it has not ceased. The only thing is that I am feeling um, more connected than ever. And I have become clear. Like, it's almost like the messages are bigger and just clear, which is nice. I've kind of figured some things out. I have figured out what certain things mean. I know that I can sometimes foresee events happening. I know that there is definitely some clairvoyancy, clairsentience. Um, I also, I definitely identify with being able to see energetic shifts. I can feel the energy actually shifting, um, like on a collective scale. So this has been all really, it's huge, you guys. Like, I know, I kind of feel like it's crazy. I know, like, if you're probably sitting there and you're thinking that it's crazy, like, no, no joke, I'm right there with you. If you had told me that any of this was going to happen 3 years ago, I would have called you bullshit. I would have been like, no way. Um, and it's just been like, honestly, I just feel like I've been meandering on this path. And to some extent, what's interesting is I think the universe has kind of led me down the path led me down a path of where I had to surrender so that I could meander, and that I could learn that in meandering, in going where I was directed, that within that is where I'm going to find abundance. Within that is where I'm going to find elatedness, joy, love, So when spirit says to you, like when spirit seriously is like, no, this isn't working, leave, let it go. Because it's really, you holding on to that is really what's blocking you. I've learned that. I've learned it in so many ways these past 2 years. It's not even funny. I've learned it when it comes to finding a place to live, like with finding a property. I've learned it when it has come to opportunities, career opportunities. I've learned it when it has come to relationships, friendships, and love. So you really just gotta go with the flow. I've been really taught that is like been my lesson, like that and patience, which is pretty much, to me, surrender and patience work hand in hand. And so it's been remarkable. It's still very scary, and definitely, I definitely get impatient at times. I get nervous that there's nothing there for me, that I'm just thinking that it's, especially in extreme moments of what I call like quietness, where I have like a couple of months where I feel like, okay, like I'm in transition, but where am I going? And when there's not a lot of activity and I can't see that, I get nervous that there's like nothing on the other side. So I'm going to say it to myself, but I'm also going to say it to you. There is always something on the other side. And everything that you have been through, everything that you have been led to up until this point, everything that you've experienced up until this point has been preparing you for that. Because it cannot be given to you until you are ready. I've learned that in so many ways, and I'm so, so grateful. Um, I'm honestly like really, I've been very, very blessed with the people that have surrounded me too these past couple of years. They very much, honestly, are living in parallel. Their lives are kind of in the same, we're kind of all in the same boat, so to speak, experiencing a lot of similar things, shifting paradigms, all that good stuff. So I want to say one more thing, only because I feel that I need to share it in order to step more fully into my purpose and just my presence where I'm at the moment. Most recently, I received a call to study shamanism. And so I've gone down that road. I've actually participated in 2 shamanic journeys. And it's been really insightful and interesting. And I honestly do not know where it is going to lead me. I remembered when I consulted with a shaman about it, he had asked me, he said, what are your intentions? And I said, I really don't have any. I was called to do this, and I'm just simply showing up. I'm here. I don't know how much it's going to take, like how far it's going to take me. I don't know, if I'm going to even find interest in it enough to like, transform it into something, enough to evolve it into something. And he was like, that is perfectly perfect. Like that is exactly, that's fine. So yeah, that really has been my spiritual journey. There has been some really crazy occurrences, which I might just touch on here and there in the future, as they come up and as we move forward, and as I'm sharing experience with others, and they're sharing experiences with you. It's just the amount of synchronicity. Honestly, guys, there's just so many instances. I feel like I could sit here and talk for another half an hour about them. So I'm going to spare you that. Just know that it's just another path that I've been called to do. So I don't know where that's going to lead. And it's such a weird, I'll share with you a situation that I experienced the other night. So I do yoga, obviously, and I was at the yoga studio, and I had a book with me that I've been reading. It's called The Way of the Shaman. And a new yoga teacher had come in, and she had seen my book, and she had said, "Is that yours?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Huh." And I said, "Yeah, I've been recently called to study shamanism." And she says to me, we're living in very interesting times right now. And I said, "Yes, we are." So, I just want to put it out there that if there's anything like that is calling, that is calling you, go for it. We just really don't know what the state of the world is going to be in the future. And, if there's something that's calling you, most likely it is because it is preparing you, or at least that's how I see it. So I think I'm going to leave it there. If there is a topic that you would like me to discuss, please feel free to drop me an email. And if you like this podcast, please jump on iTunes to subscribe and maybe leave a review. Thank you again for listening.